Sports Spotlight Series. This was a brainstorm of mine to make sure that we have engagement with elite athletes, persons who have been working at the top level to make a difference. And we've got two very, very powerful panels coming before you. The first is the men. And so I want to introduce our panelists, and then following them, we're just going to have a quick changeover and women will join us on the stage. First, I want to introduce Mr. Bucky Brooks. Go Tar Heels.
That's right.
That's right. Drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the second round of the 1994 NFL Draft, Bucky played for 5 different teams in 5 NFL seasons after his career was over as a scholar athlete. In 1999, he joined the Seattle Seahawks Pro Personnel Department as a regional college scout. He served in the same capacity for the Panthers from 2003 to 2007 before joining CNN SI as an analyst, and we know him from the NFL Network in all of his great work. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very blessed and honored to be in the company of Ken Harvey. He went to UC Berkeley, go Bears. Oh, okay. Selected for, definitely a fan favorite here. Selected for the first round, 12th overall of the '88 draft by the Cardinals. He played 6 seasons until signing with, I know I'm going to get you on this, with the Washington Commanders. In 1994, he selected to 4 straight NFL Pro Bowls, ended his career with 89 sacks. Check this out, averaging 8.6 per season. Nice. He retired just prior to the '99 season. In 2002, he received the prestigious honor being nominated in the Washington's highest accolade as one of the 80 greatest Washington football players. He's in the Ring of Fame at FedEx Field, nominated 5 consecutive times for the Hall of Fame. He authors books, screenplays. He has a children's book. Welcome, Ken Harvey. Right. Mr. Guy Troupe. I met this gentleman about 2 years ago, and I am a big fan of his work. Brains and Heart. He is reared by descendants of the historic Black Wall Street in Tulsa. He graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, magna cum laude. He graduated undergrad and a graduate degree from Howard University. He did doctoral level coursework at Teachers College, Columbia. And he is a former college football player. He's known throughout America as an authority in this field when we're talking about athlete development and transition. His professional career began as a substance abuse educator and counselor for DC public schools. So we know how valuable that is in relationship to our topic here with the conference. He launched a career in athletics as a compliance services intern for the NCAA. He worked 6 years as an enforcement representative. So when we talk about being a part of the community and knowing the community, the NFL hired him, pursued him, and he was the director of player programs in 1997. His work in the NFL, it includes the NFL Rookie Symposium curriculum, co-designer of the NFL Club Life Skill, chair of the Player Development Steering Committee, and he's co-founder of the Professional Association of Athlete Development. First ever recipient of the NFL Player Development's Commitment to Service and Excellence Award. I mean, I can just go on and on. He moved back to Tulsa with his beautiful wife, Yvette. He opened the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge. So we're going to talk more about that. And that's his first business venture on the historic Black Wall Street. He's a community man. He's a businessman. And we're so blessed to have him here. Every Super Bowl week, what number are you on for the P&E? 22 years of convening former NFL football players during Super Bowl week, and his event is on Friday. So welcome this amazing panel. Mr. Stephon Johnson will be joining us. He will join the panel. For those of you who are Trojan fans or alums, Stefan, okay, I see you. He was in the tradition of the great running backs here. He appeared to be ready for the draft in 2010 as he opened up his senior season, but he was with Mark Sanchez. You all remember Mark as a quarterback here. USC went 12-1, defeated Penn State in the Rose Bowl, and then he had a weightlifting accident. You all might remember that. They nearly killed him. It changed his life, including his NFL dreams. But instead of just stopping with that injury, he continued to say, there's something for me. There's a way that I can serve. And so he did that. He signed with the Tennessee Titans as an undrafted free agent. He suffered a dislocated ankle. He wasn't able to play. And then his high school, Dorsey, right here in California, hired him as their football coach. So when Stephon Johnson joins us, please politely welcome him to the stage. Bucky, it's on you.
Thanks, Doc. This is it's amazing to be on the panel with so many accomplished former athletes. And so since I heard all those accomplishments, I think everybody should kind of share a little bit about their journey. So let's start with you, Ken.
First off, since we're in California, I've always wanted to, I see the Hollywood people, they do like this to everybody. Thank you for having me here. Because you see these things on TV and then I want to cross my leg like I'm important. But then I realize I'm not flexible, so I'm gonna sit back, taking up time. All right, let me be real quick. So Ken Harvey, my story making it to the NFL was kind of a different journey than most people. I dropped out of high school, not saying it like it's a celebrity type thing. Sometimes kids don't know which direction to go, where they're going, and sometimes you need a moment in life to kind of kick you in the butt to get you back on path. And so for me, that was that moment in life to figure out what am I going to do with myself. And it was a long journey trying to get back into school and go back, but I finished up high school. But my goal was to try to go to college to prove to people that I wasn't done. And so I ended up I met a guy in a gym who told me about a junior college in Oakland, California, and said, they don't offer scholarships, you got to work, you got to save up some money, but you can go there. Went to this junior college in Oakland, California, played there for 2 years, had a couple of choices of colleges to go to, saw Cal, Berkeley, guy named Harvey Nickerson. Everybody was looking at him as a linebacker. I figured me as a junior coming over, it would be a good place for me to get noticed. So I ended up going to University of California, Berkeley. Thank you very much. Played there for 2 years, ended up getting drafted in the NFL, played in the NFL for 11 years. I had a pretty good career there. And just been blessed, man. It's life is good. And this is kind of how you always have that moment where when things are really at your worst and you're on your knees and you make all these promises to God, God, if you give me some place and I'll glorify your name and I'll be able to say all this and that. This is kind of full circle. So I'm excited to be here and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to talk, and I will shut up because I like to talk. There you go.
How about you, guys? Talk about your experience.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dev talked a little bit about me and my background. The most notable thing I can tell you is that I just did what my parents told me to do. So I had parents that were social workers. They said, boy, go to school, learn something. Football, athletics can run out. So I just followed the mentorship, the parenting, and got educated and then pursued a career in athletics, but I really stumbled upon it. My college coach was a guy named Willie Jeffries. He broke the color barrier in Division I football at Wichita State. So I was recruited out of Oklahoma to go to Wichita State. I went there 2 years. He took the job at Howard. I followed him to Howard, and that changed my life because in that environment, I was around people that looked like me, that valued education. Some of the folk in the locker room were on the one track, right? The eggs in one basket. So I learned to do two and found a way to carve out a niche in the sports arena, working primarily with football, but I've worked with great college and high school athletes. I was running around the country chasing kids around in the 90s for $100 handshakes and cars and all of that. So fascinating life in sports. And so I'm honored to be here with you guys.
So to tell you a little bit about my journey, Troupe played an instrumental role in my journey. When I was with the Kansas City Chiefs in 1997, He was working with the National Football League. The first internship that I did was with the NCAA. Worked with him on life skills and went and had an opportunity to talk. And he was one of the first to kind of open my eyes towards life after. And so I'm forever indebted to him. So it's great to have him on the panel. Stephon Johnson, local hero, celebrity. Let's a guy who has done an outstanding job with his high school program, the Dorsey Dons. I'm over at Granada Hills Charter. We almost had a chance to square up with you guys. So, Stephon, talk a little bit about your journey, just your football journey. I don't know if this was on. Like, take this.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you guys for such a warm welcome and to be on this great panel with these great gentlemen and great pillars of the community. I didn't know that you were coaching at Granada Hills, but I understand the struggle and the things that you went through as a head coach, in the city and trying to get these kids back on track. I was that kid that's from the greater Los Angeles. I grew up in Compton, Compton, California. Went to high school right here at Dorsey High School. This is home. I went to USC. I went here, played my dues here, and I wanted to come back home. I wanted to give them the same resources and networking and opportunities that a lot of us don't really have, and I think a lot of these outside, Orange counties and the valleys and different things like that have more resources or more things that's going on and have access, so to say. So I want to bring more things back here in the inner city, and I thought that starting with my high school would be a great start.
It is really a fantastic story when you dig into what you've been able to do in high school. And I think you bring me to a point where I think all of us, if we could go back, we always have those, if I only knew now back then what I know now. And so if you had an opportunity to do a do-over, athletically, academically, when you were coming up, how would you utilize that mulligan?
All right, I'm gonna get off track again real quick. So one thing at my junior college, our coach made sure everyone took a speech class. And he said, I just wanted to make sure that if you ever have to talk in front of the camera, you know what you're doing. And one of the only things I remember from the speech class is like, always as you're looking around the room, find somebody that's a comfortable face, that's going to kind of nod with you and agree. So even if I say something stupid, you just be like, it's okay, baby. That's stupid, but you're doing okay. So I'm looking for that person. So if I'm eyeballing you, don't get scared. I'm just, so look, for me, there were two things I think that for me, it felt like God was saying in my life, even now, two things that you need to master. If I had to do it over again, I would. It's fear and knowledge. Don't be fearful, be knowledgeable, right? So fear takes on many forms. It takes on the form of not asking a question when you need to ask a question, not saying something, not taking a chance on something, not completing something because you don't feel like you can do it. Knowledge is the second part of fear, because if you're not knowledgeable, then you usually don't step forward and take that chance. You usually don't make that move. You don't do something because you don't feel like you're adequate enough to it. So with football, I always say there are three things that will make you great. You have your natural ability, you can be super smart, and you can have a lot of heart. And if you master any one of those, you can be a great player. If you master all three, you can be a Hall of Famer. I was good as an athlete, and I was good at having a lot of heart. I didn't do well. I knew the playbook, but not only knowing the playbook, it's more important to know your plays, know what the opponent's doing, and know what your own teammates are doing. That makes you a good leader. So if I had to go back over again, I would educate myself more on playing the game of football, understanding what everyone does and master that, and then just not being fearful. There were times, games that still haunt me where I knew I could beat the guy, but I didn't take a chance. I didn't do it because that was that move. And that's the same thing in life. That's the same thing in finance. That's the same thing in everything else in my life. Those are the two areas that I'm working on now to try to overcome. So,
Yeah, well, I would say I would learn to wait in lines and not be entitled. as an athlete, and it started when I was in middle school. The coach took the best 4 players to McDonald's, and so you thought you were better than the other 20 guys on the team, and on and on and on. The more elite you become, the more entitled you become. So personally, I wish I would have thought less entitled. And so when my transition from football happened, I was a senior in college. I knew I wasn't going to play in the NFL because I wasn't good enough, right? I was angry, and I couldn't watch football, but I still had an entitlement mentality. So I would do better at not thinking that I deserved anything, that I had to work at everything, and I'd be kinder to everyone. So what the game taught us is to be aggressive, to be the alpha male, and you have to pull that out. So we all have some transferable skills because we played the game. I would have started using them in the 8th and 9th grade.
What about you, Stefan? If you could do it all.
Honestly, I had a wonderful career, especially in Pop Warner in high school. I think the LA showed me a lot of love as far as just showering me with so much. You know, I really didn't have to worry. What I think is kind of piggybacking off of what you said, try to raise the man instead of the player, because I think that once the player had to retire, I had to figure out as a man where to go next. And I think that getting that and getting to our kids early on, like you said, in the 8th and 9th grade, and kind of incorporating some of the football aspects along with the life aspects, and kind of raise that man as we raising that player. I think it put us in a better situation so we don't have this big gap once you say you're done with the game.
Look, I think that is great. And I think everyone offered perspectives that I'm kind of envious of, because I think as a player, the one thing that I wish I could go back and do is what you helped me learn with life skills. Because I feel like a lot of times when we're in college, we fail to utilize all the resources that are available. We all went to great universities with a lot of great people around, a lot of great things around. And I don't know if we fully tap into what's available to really set us up. So my regret is not fully utilizing all of those things around and kind of immersing myself in the student experience as well as the student athlete experience. And so when thinking about that, if you hadn't had the opportunity to be an athlete at your respective school, what would your path have looked like? What was the backup plan if you couldn't have played football?
Yeah, I think my backup plan probably would have been to pursue something in the sciences. I was very good in sciences when I was in younger in middle school and high school, but athletics forced me into really a major that I wasn't really interested in. So it turned out okay, but ultimately, I think this education path we're on, the academies in America, oftentimes route athletes to easy stuff. And if you look at any program at a college or university, you can tell the hookup majors, right? And I'm not trying to be overly critical, but that track is an exploitive track. And so what I'd like to see happen is high schools and colleges where you're supposed to be educated, that we create some mandates around what athletes have to do. So this name, image, and likeness thing at the collegiate level, Bucky, we were just talking about it. It's going to be a nightmare if kids aren't educated.
It is. What about you?
Forget. I was going to do something funny, but it wasn't funny. So, yeah. Creative. I mean, I like right now, I discovered I like writing. And so I've written a couple of novels, I have about 7 children's books and a couple of novels, thriller suspense novels. And so I think in the creative side, I would do something creative. That would be my track because, yeah, that's what I like to do now.
Stefan.
I'm a music guy. I think some of them have to do along the lines of scoring for movies and commercials, and having something to do along the entertainment side of it was suitable for me. I was growing up, I was a DJ. So I think like taking that musical aspect of it, and I love math, and it's just having those two. I think the sound engineering part of it would be more of the things I wanted to do.
It's funny because music was a passion, but I had no musical talents. But writing was something that I was drawn to later in life. I wish I wanted to go to school to be a teacher and a high school coach. My dreams early were to be a high school teacher and coach and do those things. And somewhere along the way, like sometimes in college, you kind of get sidetracked because of you talk about the designated major. I wish I pursued that because I believe the impact that we all have on young people is immense. And I just remember how my high school coach impacted me and how my high school English teacher, Miss Watson, impacted me. And she would challenge me in those things. And I think in the high school halls, like having a male presence that is able to tap into some of the young people would have been fascinating.
I was gonna say, I got some bald-headed editors because they be like pulling their hair like, oh, that's not a sentence. God Almighty. But you do it. I mean, like I said, that's kind of I talk about fear and all those, like some of the base emotions, because, we could put labels on things, but I think sometimes you got to get to the root of a issue. And sometimes it's lack of confidence or lack of vision or fear. And I think a lot of times kids, you say, get this and get that, but you go back to that place and you don't realize they're dealing with murders around the corner. They're dealing with issues here and there. And that's the root of a lot of it. And that's what you have to overcome. That's what you have to fight against. And so, that's why I keep going back to those same root issue type stuff.
So now when we talk about issues, the headlines have been dominated over the last week. In the National Football League, Brian Flores, former coach of the Miami Dolphins, filed a lawsuit against the NFL and a handful of teams alleging racial discrimination and bias in some of the hiring practices. It has been acknowledged that the NFL has a diversity problem. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think about the lawsuit? And then what do you think about the diversity issues that have popped up in the National Football League, particularly within the coaching ranks? Let's go, Stefan. We'll let you start.
I'm trying to think of a joke like he said. No, I think that honestly speaking, by me being probably the youngest on this panel, he's paving the way for somebody like myself. He's doing something that's innovative and kind of stepping off the box and not thinking about himself and kind of thinking about the future of the Black coaches has to bring coming up. I think it's wonderful. I would love to see more of it. I think that our game needs it, and I think it kind of balances out. I think it all balances everybody out in one way or another. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't think it's not even a deep discussion. I think you just need to see more of a balanced act of it, and it'll feel much better. It wouldn't feel like you have to go by a rule that was put in 20 years ago to make everything right. I don't think that's pretty much fair.
What about you, Guy? You've been in the league for a long time.
Yeah, well, I was the first chair of the NFL's Diversity Council. And so there were two movements at that time, an internal council. So the league office had to model diversity for the 32-member clubs. And then the Rooney Rule and all of that came out of that. But the thing we need to really understand in private industry is that we do what we want. I own a coffee shop. I can hire whoever I want, right? And the 32 owners of our club, whatever you think about them, they make their own rules. And so it's not in their constitution and bylaw to really value diversity. It's a nice thing, but it's not written in the law and how they operate. So for me, as a Black male, and I know plenty of players that want to be coaches and administrators, I can only imagine the mental anguish that it takes to know you're good enough, right? But there's not an opportunity at the table. I was in middle management at the NFL, and I left to chart my own course because I was hitting the ceiling. And so in the meetings, when I did really advocated for players, that was my passion. That's what I was there to do. And if I was talking to big time management and they didn't want to help the players do something, that frustrated me. So I kept kicking the wall down. I chaired the diversity council, and then I realized I have to go do my own thing. And so to change this thing, I think the union and the players have to do their own thing, whatever that looks like.
do you think, Ken?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's sad that you have to put the label on it, like we have to have a Black head coach, we have to have this and that, because I think there's so much talent all the way around, but it's not noticed. And if those in power who make the decisions, if you never get a chance to see what that person can do, then it never happens. So that, I guess, to answer your question, yes, there needs to be more diversity in the head coaching, because there are a lot of talented people out there who could do the job. It's one thing if they couldn't do the job and you just place them there because you say they should be there because of the color or whoever they are, but there are a lot of talented people that could be there. And I think that's what the fault maybe of the NFL, or where they're struggling with, is that there is talent out there and you need to look at that talent, and it has to be exposed, and you have to see people out there doing their job, not just sitting on the sideline, like we said, and being up on the panel talking. They should be out there coaching.
Now, I will say this as a high
Applying
school
for a job. Y'all didn't. They should be coaching.
I would say this as a high school coach in LA. The issue is beyond the National Football League. I think Stefan can attest. Part of the reason why we may be coaching in the city and city section schools is because opportunities are not there necessarily at private schools and other schools. And so it's a bigger issue. I don't know what the resolution is, but I think more conversation, more talking about it, eventually, hopefully something will change. So let's pivot on this. And so we all know that it's an important part of our mission to create awareness around aging and health and those things amongst men. At a younger age, what do you wish you had known about whether it's nutrition or exercise or sleep or any of those things that will have enabled you to have maybe a more productive career as an athlete? Let's start with you, Ken.
Just stretching more. You know, as I've gotten older, God, my body hurts. and so I think stretching, like when I was younger, I did Hapkido, I did basketball, I did a little bit of everything. So stretching was involved in all that. But as you get older, or as I got older, I focused more on just lifting, that one-dimensional type thing. And there's so many other things out there. So if I had to go back again, I would continue to stretch, even though I thought it was boring to death. You realize it's just as important as lifting. And so I would do that again.
Yeah, I would say I'm trained in counseling and psychology, and I don't go see counselors or psychologists. Who counsels the counselor? Who helps the pastor? So when I think about what I wish I would have knew and learned, was just that EQ, that emotional intelligence, that need to go talk to somebody, right? My wife begs me to go talk to people now, and I still won't, right? And I'm in it. So if I could have learned to just give my trauma, give my problems to an objective third party to talk me through it. What I learned to deal with it in college was it was a 40 ounce or some liquor, right? And I had alcoholism in my family. And so that was my coping mechanism as a young boy. So that's what I would say, just trying to become more emotionally mature and more interested in talking out my issues with others. And the other thing would be sleep and hydration. Like the body's 80% water? And I didn't start drinking water till I was 40. I mean, really. I mean, just really hydrating every day. Yeah.
What about you, Saban?
Well, I was blessed. My dad's a track coach, been a track coach at Dorsey since 1981. So the hydration and the resting and all that kind of stuff kind of came with my household. So what I will say is understanding, which is kind of sad to me because I think that most kids shouldn't have to deal with it, but I think that they're going through it. What I mean by that is the business aspect of the game. I didn't see it until I got closer to, out of SC and then into the NFL, when you start seeing the business aspect of how things going. And like you said, it's a private entity and they can do whatever they want. So understanding that and understanding that my dream job that I always want comes with that, knowing, we're easier, or should I say, soften the blow. in the sense of when I do get in that arena. So if I would have known the business aspect of it, how to take control of your emotions, how to take control of some of the things that may not go your way, and it has been in the past, and kind of goes back to what I said about training the man and not the player.
You know, it's funny because I think it's a combination of what all you guys have mentioned. I would take in. You talk about the therapy, you talk about the stretching. The young man who talked about yoga earlier, I think practicing mindfulness, it wasn't until I moved to Oakland and had an opportunity to be around like different people that I was able to kind of tap into that. But I think it's really important to kind of deal with those personal traumas that we all experience. And so thinking of the personal traumas, we all played a very violent game for a long time. And so have you, any of you either dealt with personal brain injury, disease, or have had teammates who have dealt with those things? And what have your experiences been like when it comes to that?
Well, I have a story personally that happened to me. Excuse me. I had something happen to me personally while I was here at USC, where the dumbbell fell on my neck, and that experience alone has molded me. And I went through so much from that time being from then on to the now, and I think that experience, that going through that type of trauma, I didn't see nobody else do it. I had to sit in those hospital beds by yourself, and then not only get out of there, try to get back into the real world and get back into something that I love to do. It kind of reminds me of what the kids kind of went through with COVID, you know, being socially isolated, being outside of their everyday life, trying to bring them back into it was very rough. So I think that's something that I had to deal with and had to understand. And it was rough because I didn't have nothing to fend that off. Like my brother said right here, his choice of fending off was, 40 ounce of liquor. That wasn't mine. I was just sitting up here beating myself up in my head, and sometimes you don't need that. And that's why I'm here, because I want to speak out and let people know, like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to go talk to somebody. It's okay to allow yourself to be vulnerable in a space where you can be comfortable and that is trusted. I think that's definitely a big pivotal part of what we got going on, especially like you said in our physical game that we play, because we're so used to being molded and trained to be tough and strong and fight off everything. Don't worry about it. Regardless if you hurt, play you hurt, and now you're in a situation where all those things that they taught you to do is no longer available. And now how you go from point A to point B when something that you love so much is in jeopardy.
Guy, you've been around a lot of players. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, a couple of stories come to mind. When I was in college, one of my teammates, we played the same position. His ankle swelled up like this. Next man up was me. I was a freshman. They threw me in the game, and then he went and got shot up, right, and then played. And right then, I knew I didn't love football because I wouldn't have done that, right? I didn't love it enough. Okay, then fast forward, when I was working in the NFL, Adewale Agunle blew his knee out. He was at the University of Indiana. And so I was doing outreach at colleges. And so I went to see him in the hospital. He had a Lloyd's in London insurance policy, $1 million. I said, well, I was gonna say, take the money. And he looked at me and said, hey man, I'm not taking the money. I'm gonna rehab this thing and I'm gonna play in the NFL to pursue my dream. He did that. And he had a great career, and now he's doing great work in the financial services arena. But my advice to him was, this is a violent game. You had a catastrophic injury. You should move on. But the beauty of these men that made it to the National Football League is that they overcome those odds and those obstacles, and they're willing to go through something that most won't, the pain and the fight that, so the last thing I would say, what I really see now, though, I know a lot of men that left the game, they're in their 50s and 60s. There's a change. Most are more irritable, most are more short-tempered, and most have concentration challenges. And it's across the board. I've been knowing men since 35, they're now 50 or 55, and they're all changing. So what the research tells us, Bucky, is that the average NFL player, Ken, had almost akin to 50 car accidents. So those collisions, you really aren't made to be 6'4" and 400, 300 pounds and run a 4.6 and then run into somebody. And so the men that could run as fast as you when you were playing, they weigh 300 pounds now. So it's a more violent game.
Now, you gave that description. I was like, have you been talking to my wife, man? Irritable and all that stuff. Another one, I learned that it doesn't transfer over, right? I like in football, you're taught, suck it up, deal with it, deal with the pain, go like that. I pulled that on my wife when she was having our baby. Suck it up. It don't transfer over, man. She like to beat me to death. But yeah,
This guy's good.
just to give you kind of a picture of it. So when we talk about the brains and the hits and all that stuff, but we've been taught, the same thing that makes you great is the same thing that can destroy you. And you've been taught all your life, suck it up, deal with it, overcome. All you got to do is work out harder, keep pushing. Even if it's an obstacle in front of you, you keep going and you're going to have a victory. That's been pushed in your head, pushed in your head. You got 100,000 fans cheering for you. You got all that stuff. And now all of a sudden you get where you can't remember something and you're looking around and you're scared because everyone has this image of you as this warrior, this great person, this person who can overcome anything. This is the person that grown men, my dad, my grandfather will become like little kids when they get around. That's that person. And when they look at you now, you gotta look at them and say, I can't remember. That's a hard thing to deal with. That's the fear that a lot of players go through. And so when you say, talk about it, or have you had anybody with brain injuries and all that stuff, that's the fear that a lot of players feel inside. Who am I? What am I going to be when I can't be Superman anymore? Superman is dead in my mind. How can I live like that? And that's a fear. Even now, sometimes I get anxious. If I can't remember where I parked my car, I'm like, God, is it because I got hit in the head too many times? Is it because I'm old? Is it because maybe I'm not eating the right foods? Have I been drinking too much? What is it? Is it that thing? And so I did know a player that we played with it at Cal. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was one of those guys, wedge breakers. Wedge breaker would go full speed into like 3 or 4 guys, 100 miles an hour head first, pow, and get up and laugh at it. And you look at him like, just like, dang. And in college, those type of hits for, back when I played, you're pat on the back. How crazy is it? You do that, you run into somebody 40 miles an hour, you come out, you're all dizzy, and they're hitting you on the head. Good job. And they're hitting you in the head on top of being you just doing that because that was the mentality. That was the way you played, and that was the way you did the job. And so I've seen some of the guys that I've played with who passed away, because of some guys who can't remember the next day. It's sad because those are your heroes, and those are the guys that you look at. And then you see some of it on the other side. Now, I know I'm talking a lot, so stop me. I can stop myself. You see some of the guys who, as you get older, and I'm not a brain surgeon and I don't have any degrees and anything like that, but you stop playing and you stop growing. And just like a lot of seniors who get in some of the senior homes who just sit around and just almost wait to die, you see some of the players who they stop. Once they stop playing ball, they just sit around. And you don't have anything else. You're not reading books. You're not doing anything different. And your brain is very efficient. And in some ways, it's going to find the shortest path to do the least amount of work possible to do whatever you're going to do. So if you have the same routine and you're not training your brain in any way other than doing the same thing day after day, your brain doesn't grow. It's like a muscle, it atrophies. And sooner or later, it's going to start dying on you. And I've seen some of the players around me who just sit around and just, it's the same old thing day after day after day. And you can see slowly they may be losing a little bit here, a little bit there. And so it's sad because once you stop playing, the hardest thing is to find something else. And a lot of guys don't find what that something else is.
Yeah. So the cognitive decline is a part of playing football.
Thank you for the big words.
Yeah. And if I had a son, I would not let him go to Stephon, and I wouldn't let him pick up football until he got to Stephon's age. Tackle, if I had one, I'd let him play flag and run around, But that early trauma is a part of the challenge. And then with all these states bringing medical marijuana online, and there are some very good sides of marijuana for men in pain. But the brain doesn't fully develop till you're about 25. People start using this drug at 14, 15. They do it for about 10 years. So the brain that could have been a Pentium chip is a 286 processor, right? And then the violence and the trauma of the car accidents contributes to it. So I think we, as a nation, we really have to analyze what football is and how, and I love the game. It changed my life for the good, but there's some sides to it that if we don't deal with it in the next 20 years, we're gonna have 40-year-olds that are like 60-year-olds.
But I will say this, good coaches make a world of difference. I've seen some idiot coaches destroying young men's lives, careers, brains, whatever, because of mentality. So, kudos to you guys, because good coaches make a world of difference.
No, I think the toughest thing is the next phase of your life when sports are done, whenever it ends. I think the toughest thing is finding something that matches the passion that you have for the game. And a lot of times, no matter how long you play, when it ends and the athlete inside you dies, you feel like a failure because we've been conditioned, all of us, to never quit. And so when you retire, when the phone stops ringing, it is going against everything that you've been taught to walk away. And so the hard thing is having somebody to talk to about those emotions and feelings those first couple of years when you're done, so that you can make a successful re-entry into what we'll call civilian life. I think that was the hardest thing for me to deal with. Like, you go from the cheering and then the cheering stops, and then you're trying to find something else that brings you joy. So for me, even though other things were going on, coaching was the only thing that could bring that back, because Friday nights were the same as walking out. So the give back to me helped me move beyond that to do other stuff.
But
Can I ask you guys a question?
No, man, I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead, Ken.
I know. Shut me up, please. Just real quick. Same, like when we retire, we deal with the same thing that people when they're 65 deal with. Think about the similarities, right? You're 65, you've been working at a job all your life, now you retire. What is your worth? What is your self-worth? You have nothing. You're looking around saying, who am I? If you don't have something else beyond that, you're lost. And you see a lot of people that are lost, and you see them slowly declining. And that's the same thing that athletes do. But now you got this young body, but you're dealing with this at 30 years old. You're dealing with it at 28 years old, 20 years old. And so I think it's as important as it is with athletes. You can also look at seniors and see the similarities and start trying to fix both of them at the same time.
I think what I've learned though, with all those being said, I think that if we're able to use those things that as a player they taught us in the real life, I think it took me 10 years to figure that part out. That same drive, that same ambition, that same get up and fight some more, that same fight on motto that you can continue to have. I had to find a way to use that in the real world, on an everyday life type thing. When something goes on, I think we forget that those rules apply. Those same rules of get up, fight some more when you hurt, when you sleepy, when you're tired. You still got to do certain things. Kids still got to go to school. The kids still going to be waiting for you at practice after you're done with your regular job and things of that nature. I think if we're able to, as a coach, I start seeing that we're able to use those same characters or the same things that they instilled in us back then and use those. It sounds cliche, but I think it works hand in hand.
Yeah, so the cycle of football is 4-4-4. You get 4 to play in high school, 4 to play in college. The average NFL career is 4 years. So if you should know how to prepare for transition. So the owners by design don't want you to get to the second contract. That's the business model. So if you make it to the next level, you should just count 4 years. And most athletes in NFL level, what I see is it takes them 18 months to just get back on the horse of anything. Because that first season you get released, you can play again. and then you keep working out. And then that second season, you hope you can play again. You try it again. So for 18 months, you're still dedicated to a game that has fired you. So I call the NFL the best temporary job in America, right? It's a temp job. And so what I want, and Stefan, you were talking about transferable skills. It's all in the literature: coachability, resilience, grit. All of you guys have it all. You just got to apply it to something else, right? But the question I really want to ask you, the NFL, the colleges, even high schools get a lot of blame for exploiting athletes. So my question to you is, what ownership will we take for not going to see the counselor, not enrolling in an accounting class at Cal Berkeley, not utilizing the resources? I think all of these entities do a great job of putting it out there. But there's something that's keeping an athlete from walking through the door to take the resource.
Well, go ahead and clap for him. Give this man a hand. The resources are there. I think we're starting to see more, like it's always the first. You're starting to see more role models of people who live those lives beyond that. Whereas before, my generation, maybe before that, you didn't see that many. But you start looking at like Magic Johnson, like let's say basketball, was that one guy, and everybody's like, oh man, he can do that and he can become successful in business. Now you got LeBron James and you got Stephen Curry, and you're saying, well, now they're doing marketing, they're doing production companies, and they have these businesses. And I think people now are starting to see that athletes can do so much more than just be athletes. But before, you were always taught, just be an athlete and be good at be an athlete. Let your agent handle that. Let somebody else handle that. You don't need to know all of this. Just be good at what you're good at. I think people are starting to see more. So you're going to start seeing younger people take some of those classes, do some of those seminars, do whatever, because they're seeing visions of it from other people. And I think we need to expose them more and more to visions of what you can do. Just like this panel. This is a vision of Black men trying to do something great, to make a difference, to try to change. But me growing up, I would have never seen this. When I went to Berkeley first time and I saw Black people at Berkeley, it's like, oh my God. And they're smart. Holy cow, what is this, man? I'm sitting up here bug-eyed all like this because I'm from Texas, and I'm like, that ain't possible. But you see it. And once you start seeing it, you start believing it and you start working towards it. And I think we need to start showing and keep showing more and more what you can do and show the examples of it, the success of it.
Yeah, to your point, it's funny because the duality, like your coaches or you've been taught to focus in on being a great player, and to be a great player, you have to pour everything into it. But as you're saying, it's the rule of fours. And so how do I pour everything into it while also prepping for the next phase? Because when you're in it and your coaches may have a sense that you're not all the way in, it then is a negative, not a positive. And having worked in the National Football League for teams where we're scouting players and you're doing the background, and you will have things and you end up like, oh, he might be too smart. He might be too smart. He might have too much going on. He may not be focused enough for us to all the way want to bring him in because he's not 100% in. And so as a player, you're dealing with that pressure of, okay, do I want to be a Renaissance man where I do have multiple things going on at the risk of not being able to fulfill the dream that sets me up to do those things? And so it's the examples that we show our young people that celebrate those who've been able to do both. I think that's the big thing. And I think depending on the circumstance where kids come from, where they may not have those around them to identify, teachers, coaches, those in the neighborhood need to show them examples and kind of take them on.
Okay. I think that I really believe that we as players, me being in that position, I think it need to be mandatory from these different locations, these different organizations. What I mean by that is coming from a kid from the inner city, coming from, what they call the hood, it's unheard of. It's like too good to be true that we can sit into a location or sit into a room with a complete stranger and let off all the things that's been going on in my life. And we know it can be so much. It can be It can keep going. And it's like, no, they're not going to sit there and listen to me, because nobody sat there and listened to us when we was younger, when we really needed somebody. We was trying to figure out, like you said, who we are as a person, not just as a player. So I think that when you get into a situation where you have not, you didn't have nothing your whole life, and now you're getting presented with a check, you know, with $3,000 or $5,000, or you might hit the big time at $3 million. And now you're in a position to where you don't even know who you are, understand who you are, but you have access to all these funds, and they expect you to be good. Like, it's unheard of. They expect you to be a model citizen. They expect you to be the person that we believe you to be. Like, that's too good to be true. That's why we have these kids are doing these certain things where, not kids, but they're younger than me, but you know, the younger people in the NFL that go through these things that haven't been able to express themselves, they're doing like the kid in the Raiders in Las Vegas. Like, that has a lot to do with where he came from. And because of what's going on, it's not because, you know, he didn't want to go to a meeting. It was because he feels as if, like, I'm a sucker in a sense if I go speak to somebody that nobody knows about what's really going on with my life. But I have money now, so who cares? And you know what I mean? I have money. I never had money in my life. Now I have access to funds that I never had before. I can go get whatever I want to get. So that pacifies, or that band-aids what we were supposed to be going to go talk to this person about. So I think that it needs to be stopped in the beginning before we even get that check. Okay, now look, this is what's going on. It seems like we setting them up for failure, I believe.
So,
Just real quick. There's a book. I'm not telling any books, but there's like a Secret Mind of a Millionaire, and it's books like that. And it's the mindset. It's exactly what you said. So like if you're living day to day as a kid, because people around you, your parents paycheck to paycheck, people around you getting shot, everything about you is day to day. Then all of a sudden you get $1 million. Your mindset is still day to day. So you get $1 million, you find a way to spend $1 million because that's the way you've been taught all your life. It's stuck in your brain. And the only way to break that habit is what you said, is educating people when they're young, give them a different path, because we are subconsciously trained to be certain ways. And you're seeing all these new programs online and TV that's saying it's retraining your brain. And there's reality to that, because we have to retrain our brain. You know, my mindset had been fear and certain other things. And you can see a 70, 80-year-old who's dealing with the same issues all his life because they never overcame that one issue that they learned when they were a kid. You got to identify it and then break out of it. So it's exactly what you said. You got to get them young, because now all of a sudden you got $1 million and you say, or it's like people saying, well, you too big, you ought to know better. Just because your body's bigger don't mean you know better. Just because you look bigger don't mean you know better. So how are you, or you should know something if no one's ever taught you that. That's what I said.
So I want to lean on you guys on this. How can we get more African-American men to participate and engage in these kinds of discussions?
Well, I think the primary thing is to focus in on multiple intelligences. The way we've been teaching people is just this one way, right? Through the academies, you lecture, mainly didactic lecturing, but there's a lot of learning styles, right? So football players in particular, hey, they had walkthroughs, right? And then they had film session. Then you have, you know, some study. And so I think if we break down the traditional way of teaching athletes and diversify the methods, you're gonna get much closer to developing the whole person. And I think coaches are brilliant at that, good coaches. And so the school systems and the colleges could learn a lot from how coaches teach athletes. But there's this prestige associated with the academies that won't really allow, you know, these jocks, Riley, to enter the field. So that would be my recommendation. You know, Nick Saban, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick are brilliant at team building, relationship building, and teaching complex things. Football is a complex game. And so they've simplified it. I think that would be my recommendation.
It's funny that you bring up Nick Saban and those guys. If you know anything about Nick Saban and what they've done at Alabama and what some of his coaches like Mel Tuck and Kirby Smart have done, part of their success stems from really tapping into the entire athlete. When you go to Alabama, you go to Mario Cristobal when he was at Oregon, but now he's at Miami. A lot of the stuff that they do is beyond the X's and O's. And as a result, their players tend to respond. They tend to respond differently because of them pouring in other aspects of their lives outside of football. Even though when we look at the TV, it seems like they're all football, they do a better job of doing the other stuff. So Ken, how can we do more engagement? What would you think from your experience? How can we engage young people more?
I'm trying to stop from talking so much. I was sitting on my
So
hands.
that's why you put it down?
Yeah, so I was sitting on my hands, man. How can we engage?
How can we engage them? How can we get more young Black men to participate, or more Black men in general to participate in conversations like this where we can see how we can maximize our health?
Well, I mean, I think one is just is vision. Given young men need to be invited to more events like this, and they need to see more people like us. I think be creative. You know, with college football now, and you get paid to market. I guess you can market yourself. You know, I would think they should get a little bit, but then the rest of the money sits in an account until they graduate, and they have to graduate to get it. And so if they don't graduate, then it goes into a fund for everybody else. But if they graduate, then they get it. Give them some incentive to finish up college one way or another. I mean, there's some creative ways probably to do it. I think being real, what you said, we focus so much on X's and O's, and people don't understand the emotional IQ of a lot of the issues. You don't understand where a person came from. You don't understand that it may be fear. We talk about going to the doctors. You don't understand that no one in their family from generations on have been to the doctors. So the doctors are foreign to somebody, and they're scared to death to go to the doctors. Only thing they hear about the doctors are the bills that come out of nowhere, and how the insurance don't cover it, and how they're getting sued and all that stuff. And so that's their experience with the doctors. Take a classroom of young Black men to the hospital and show them that it's okay, that it's a good thing. Go to the banks and show them it's okay. But don't get them where you're trying to teach them because there's a vested interest in you, because now you're an agent, or you're looking at somebody trying to get a deal from this player because you're getting visibility because, oh, you're working with so-and-so now that he's a superstar. You got to get them when they're young and start educating them.
What do you think, Stefan, in terms of engaging? How can we engage better?
I think this kind of goes back to my stance on the Coach Floyd situation. I think that, first of all, I think it needs to be stipulations on the NIL deal. I think that it definitely needs all this NIL stuff. It's not doing nothing but putting these kids into a highlight society. Everything is all glorified, and everything is all like, if you like, put it this way, if you feel it as if it's some things going on with early rookie and early NFL guys, what do you think high school and college kids are going to do? You know, and that it's going to become a situation where what power does a teacher have? What power does the coach have? What power does the parent have at this point, where I have more money than my teacher? I'm making more money than the coach. I'm making more money than all these different people, and they're saying it's okay. But think about the pressure that they have, coming from a person that got paid for it. You know what I mean? Coming from a person that was getting shoveled the money. Hey, I give you this. You know what I mean? It's just because of I was blessed to be who I was in high school and Pop Warner and college. Like, those things have been presented to me. But what about the pressure that it puts on these kids at a young age? And it goes back to they don't know how to cope with that. They don't know how to deal with that type of stuff. So I think that the outcome needs to be experience is the best teacher. The ones that have that experience, that went to these colleges, that seen the booster handshakes, that seen the booster love, that seen the experience and the communication that you have with all these different people that pays their writes the checks. You know, we need to have these conversations with these kids and let them know what's really going on and how we can be able to help you so that they can feel more comfortable in the situation when it comes to bringing them in. You know, we can bring them in all day, but you got to let them know what's going on and what can happen if you don't follow the same channels that the experience has taught us.
Look, I think it's been a fascinating discussion. Doc, I want to ask you, do you want me to open up for question and answer, or do you want to wrap?
Q&A. She's going to go ahead and give the mic to the audience.
Cool. So what we want to do is we want to open up the discussion, questions from the audience.
In the wrong land right now, brother. In the wrong land right now.
Hey, so I really enjoyed the discussion. This was rich, thoughtful. So thank you for such stimulating discussion. As a football fan, got 4 professional players. I just want to know who's the best player you ever played against.
Is this straight? Sheesh, I guess I can go first. I had a lot of competitors. There's a lot of different people I can probably pinpoint. Sheesh, if I ever played against. I think Troy. Yeah,
Troy Polamalu,
Troy.
from the Pittsburgh
Especially
Steelers,
on
Hall of
the
Fame.
other side of the football, is just, I mean, of course he's an SC guy, but so I'm a little biased, but I mean, just the way that he dissected the game, the way he was able to affect the game at, a position that everybody that it's unheard of. You at safety, he's supposed to be at safety. I seen him line up at D-line. I seen him at this. It confuses things as a coach. Now like, man, how am I safety? Is that a 3 technique? Like, how are we supposed to block that? And he's effective at it. He get a sack or he get a tackle for loss or something like that. And when you're able to change the complexity of an offensive call from one person, I think that labels you as very tough to play.
Yeah, I think for me it's tough because I played with so many Hall of Famers, from Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed.
Oh, you cheated.
I think about Tony Gonzalez and Reggie White and all those guys. But I'm gonna say Charles Woodson, being in the room with a young Charles Woodson when he was a rookie and a second-year player. I'd never been around a guy with so much confidence and self-belief. And then to be able to take that confidence and to have instincts and awareness that were beyond his years, to me, that is impressive. And then to see how he matured, because he was a guy that could just leave the playbook under his chair for 4 or 5 days, go play and play on talent. But then as you watch him mature into like the elder statesman for the Green Bay Packers, he's the best that I've ever seen in terms of like watching that growth.
Yeah,
That's a rough one. It's rough.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
rough.
I didn't play professional ball, but I played with my hometown produced a lot of talent. I'm thinking about 2 basketball players that I played basketball with growing up. So Wayman Tisdale is from my town, and I saw him transition to a great jazz musician. And so he was probably the most elite athlete that I was around. I wrestled and played basketball. So Kenny Mundy was an Olympian, 3-time Olympian from my hometown. But Jumpy Gathers, that played with you in the Redskins, he was a basketball player. Story, Coach Jeffries recruited him to Wichita State as a basketball player to hide him. So he got the basketball coach at a junior college, at a high school, send him and let him play basketball. And then he stole him as a football player. And the first time I shook Jumpy's hand, he shook my hand. He was here. So he was he had a move called a forklift that John Madden named. He was the most powerful football player I had ever seen play.
When you did like that and said, he's pointed over this way, I thought you were talking about me. I was all proud. I was like, yeah. You said Jumpy Gather. I was like, oh, okay. So it's hard to say who's the best, because there are people who are the best at different times, different position, right? Dan Marino, his release was so quick. I could beat the lineman, but as soon as I get to him, I went against Bo Jackson, and it just looked like I hit the angle on him. I was pretty fast. I was kill shot. It looked like he looked at me, waved, beep, beep, highlight tape. So, it's hard. Emmitt Smith, right? He dominated the game, but his offensive line was so good. It's just different things like that. I'm gonna give a shout out for this real quick outside. As football players, sometimes you're excited for people and you get to see the power that you have. Emmitt did a video for my dad, because we're from Texas, and he did a video for my dad to send, Mr. Harvey, blah, blah, blah. I'm like a kid in the candy store. It's the greatest thing ever. So, you realize how for us sometimes you think it's just a moment, and you realize for somebody else, it could be their lifetime experience. And that is probably the greatest thing. I think we all try to stop it and we plant a seed, because the life you change, it could be for an instant for you, but for them, it's a lifetime. That thing lasts forever. So.
How you guys doing, man? Josh Andrews, playing for the Atlanta Falcons right now. My question is, as a person on the back end of the career, about to transition out, what things would you suggest me or really other athletes do as they prepare to transition out of football? Is there anything, like, I know you talked about seeing the counselor to really focus on your transition out, but is there anything else that you guys suggest?
Yeah. So shameless plug, come to the Player Networking event tomorrow. It's designed for that. So Ronnie Lott is going to talk about his transition into a Toyota dealership. Will Shields, another Hall of Famer, is going to talk about his growth. But getting to networking events, what college did you go to? So I would go get some Oregon State some Falcons letterhead, and I'd write every booster in the Oregon State program a letter and start networking. Go back across the bridge that you probably didn't utilize properly. So go back there, Oregon State, and leverage down at your high school. Come to the P&E tomorrow.
Can I ask you a question though? Like, people say, start networking. Is there videos or something to show people what networking is? Like, we get this, well, you just need to go and network and write something on the letterhead. But if you're not comfortable talking to people, if you don't have a foundation, what is networking, to explain, instead of
this is how I would try to teach it. So when I talk to athletes, I tell them all, I'm going to date myself, but look at me like I'm Halle Berry, right? Like what I'm saying to you is really sexy, right? And so I need you to connect with these powerful men that way. So everyone goes to dinner and has a conversation, right? That's all you have to do. And if you sign a ball for a grandchild, and you send it to the booster or the powerful person in the city that you want to live, they're going to be, like you said, they're going to be indebted to you. So while you're an active player, you can get in just about any door. You can write a CEO in any city, and they'll say, wow, this guy that played for the Falcons wrote me a note. And so when you travel to the game, don't send all your family to the games. Invite a CEO to the game. Give them 2 tickets. They'll mentor you for life.
Hey, don't start your letter off with "Hey, baby," though.
They told me you look like
this
Harvey.
man. He needs to be a stand-up.
Hey, baby. Just checking out your business, and
I think that first things first, get into something that you really want to do. I think follow your first mind. I think where I messed up at, I knew that my calling, and I think that I knew I should be a coach. Like I said, my dad coached since 1981, the track coach. And, I was always that kid. I always want to know, okay, why are you hobbling as a quarterback? Why are you audible? I need to know why you changing this play. And I played running back. So I always want to know everything. And I knew that I was going to be a coach, and I ran from it, and by me running from it, I was missing the exits that I was supposed to have got off on in life. And it took time, and it took time, and it took time. And I think that once you get into that arena, that first thing that comes to your mind when I think about what I want to do when I'm done, whether it's kids, whether it's entertainment, whether it's real estate, whatever it is, I think take that same competitive nature that you did to get where you got, bro. Like, honestly, you know what I mean? Like, what got you to the Falcons, what got you to Oregon State, like, that's not I never wanted Oregon, by the way. I don't know why I'm telling you about this, but I never wanted Oregon, So I know the grit, I know the grind, and I think that's what helped us as coaches, because like we said, we went through that experience, and we know what kind of grind, what kind of drive you have. Just take that into whatever that arena is and just apply it, bro. As much as we could, apply it and be able to talk, like you said, speak to everybody. Everybody that told you, if you ever need something, give me a call. Call them, man. Like, if somebody told me that, and it was like, I'll never do it. But like, those are the people that if they don't pick up, then they liars. It is what it is. But if they do, they're gonna do everything they could for you. real quick story. I was going to get my my niece a car at a Honda dealership out here somewhere, and we couldn't get it done. We was trying to get in her name and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, man, I can't figure out what it is. And so the VP, the head guy of the Honda dealership, walks in and says, "Hey, man, I remember you was the only one out of a group of your whole teammates signed the ball and played catch with my grandson and my son. Well, let us walk out with a car." You know what I mean? Like just something like that. That's simple. I mean, he never told me if you ever need something, call me, but just those little gestures that you've done, that goes a long way. So like you said, if you go email all the boosters, they might say, "Hey man, this the kid that did whatever it is." And that goes back to, I know you're done, but what we're trying to teach the kids in high school, you got to be a people person. You got to be able to, like you said, network and buy into what these people want to talk about. You never know when you're going to need that person, one way or another. When you're done, and like I said, that player is going to retire.
Yeah, I would say this. While you're still active, I would say this is a great opportunity to job shadow, because a lot of the things that you think you may be interested in, when you get in it, you don't know. And so when you're retired and you're now needing the check and you get into it, you have more consequences because you have family. So I would say while you're active, go and job shadow, go and internship, go and do different things so you can really determine whether you like it or not. For me, I thought maybe the financial industry would be something that I wanted, but then I did a temp job for a couple weeks. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. I'm not an office job guy, but I would say while you don't have anything like hinging on it, go and sample a bunch of different things and see what you really like. And then that can fuel your passion to learn more about it. I think that would be the advice that I learned from doing internships and those.
One thing I would say, volunteer your time with kids, right? You can develop confidence with fifth graders that aren't judging you. So go play with them, go speak to their class. You'll learn something about your passions if you just give of yourself. Your natural skills will develop. And so I want to praise Stefan. He's bringing some high school kids to this event tomorrow. They're going to be around active and retired players, 10th graders, 9th graders. He's modeling and showing them role models. Hey, this guy's in a classroom. He doesn't have to be. Super Bowl weekend, he's going through a seminar. So, but volunteering your time and service to others will help you kind of find your way.
And don't beat yourself up if you're not great in everything. You know, sometimes you get down and you feel like, I'm this football player. I made it to the NFL. I played all these years. I'm supposed to just dominate this. No, you're not. You're starting just like everybody else. And your job is to transfer that attitude, that desire, that push, that hard work into whatever you're doing and to see if you like it or not. So don't beat yourself up.
Hi, everyone. As you're talking about mental health, it's powerful. Oh,
Stand up, please.
Hi, everyone from UC Berkeley. Thank you, Linda.
Stand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. As you guys are talking about mental health and community and upbringing, it's powerful. And I guess my question is, how much of this conversation happened when we were playing the game and on the team? Because mental health care and mental health issues can be very isolating. And as you're talking, I imagine not being able to go in a room and talk to people that are trained to hold that space for you, but also being on the team. You can be on a team and still feel isolated. And I'm just wondering, for you all, where did you find support? And beyond just coaches, how did you lean on each other? And did you feel like you had access to those kinds of conversations as you were playing?
I think that was unheard of for us. There's no such thing as mental health while we was inside the locker room. I think we didn't really experience it, and actually, I would take that back. We knew it was a prevalent. We didn't think that it was affecting us. Like, that's not us. We good. Like, you can read about it and you hear about it, and you hear certain people, oh, I'm taking medication for this and making medication for that. But you always would think like, that couldn't be us. That's not us. Like, once I found out what an anxiety attack was, I was like, I've been having this for the last 10 years. Like, why nobody tell me about this a long time ago? I thought it was normal. I thought I was just nervous before I got to do something, you know, and I didn't know what's going on until you get into a situation and it's bad to say it, not bad to say it, but sometimes, like you said, those experiences, whether if it's good or bad, I think we get into a bad situation when we find out, like, man, really, maybe I do need to go find help, or maybe I am stuck in the same place for a long period of time. And I love Google. You Google something, and he say, "Well, dang, I might got those." That sounds a lot like me.
WebMD.
So I think that just being able to acknowledge it and being okay with being vulnerable and speaking to somebody else about it early has to do with time with people experiencing that, and like you said, having these type of panels to let you know, like, it's okay. I think we always thought like you got to be a different human being to go talk to somebody where you're going through this, you know, and now it's like, no, it's normal. You go through those things. Like, it's things that we have to understand that in life, in this game, we're going to go through. We're going to go through it and finding a way. And now they're trying to, I love the fact that they're putting it more on the broad spectrum of things. And it's some people right now in the field that I know for a fact that have mental issues that the league is glorifying because he's sacking people, he's going crazy. No, he has an issue. And you keep pacifying it by, oh, we're going to let him sit out for 2 or 3 games and let him just think about it and let him get his mind right. No, it's still there. It's still there. But because he's making you these checks and we're not going to complain. Why would we complain? We getting our pockets fattened too. So we don't know it's really an issue until it's all said and done.
Yeah, I would. So I would start with saying the locker room is very therapeutic, and oftentimes these relationships, you're solving things over a beer or in a cold tub, and you're really being intimate with a small few, right? And so I became less biased with the big country white guys I played with. And they taught me to not be so black and white on race. And I saw one of my teammates kiss his dad in the mouth when I was a sophomore, and I thought, what the hell was that? But that was just a dad loving his son, right? And so he got ribbed and about that. For his nickname throughout the rest of college was Kissy Bear, right? But even though we made fun of it, I learned a lot from, man, if I'm ever a dad and have a son, I'm not gonna be afraid to kiss my son, right? And so I think there's a lot of therapy going on, and really the key to processing things is people that can ask great questions and then shut up and listen, right? So we all have a friend, a clergy person. You don't necessarily have to be trained in counseling to help baseline things. Now, I'm not talking about high level mental illness and real challenges that need medicine, but there's some baseline stuff that these guys can offer to each other, and that's really part of what they're talking about when they miss the game. And I just remember, after the game, right, the fun of it all. So
There's
I don't know if I answered.
Well, there's recently, about a couple of months, 6 months ago, a long time ago, I called up a counselor because the NFL Players Association offer, you can get free counseling sessions. Called them up and I was like, look, I just need to talk to somebody that don't care about my football career, that does not try to make a name for themselves when they talk to me, not trying to write a book. I just need to say, this is who I am, good, bad, ugly, and just listen. And that's what you need sometimes. Just somebody, and that's what you say, your boys would just listen sometimes and not judge you. But then also with the listening is maybe here's a solution. And that's where sometimes the trained people come in and it's better. But the NFL is doing a better job. NFL Players Association is doing a better job of opening up the door and allowing you to talk to people. On us is our job. We have to make that step forward. And a lot of times we hear that from our other teammates. A friend of mine told me about, he was talking to a counselor and he said how great it was. So I decided to do it. And then we just start spreading the word amongst each other.
Yeah, I think my experience in college, I worked with a sports psychologist, would kind of open me into like being able to talk to people. But I think what you have to understand, the locker room is great, but it's also weird. It's weird in the fact that we can play together, but if I get cut, I may not talk to the guy for the next 3 years. And so part of that is how guys may or may not communicate. And I feel like it's better now in terms of that, but there's a lot of, hey man, have you checked in with such and such? Because we don't do a great job of having great conversations. And so when we think about mental health and certain issues, it hasn't always been a place where it was very open and honest, where we could have real discussions. I do feel like now the world has shifted where we are more open to discuss things, and we've had prominent athletes come out and talk about things. And I think that has made it a more open and welcoming place when we have guys like AJ Brown, who's a Pro Bowl player, who says that in the middle of a Pro Bowl year that he was depressed and thought about suicide and those things. So now those things are hitting home, but I don't feel like it was very macho back in the day to have those conversations with a bunch of different people in the locker room. It is only now within the last 5 to 10 years that we've had people open up and really share their hardships and what they're dealing with.
My name is Dr. Jaquel Pitts. I have a PhD in counseling from Northwestern Christian University. Mr. Guy Troupe, you mentioned that networking is very important. So I noticed online that there's some flyers that say your networking event is on February 10th, and I noticed some flyers say it's on February 11th. So is it a 2-day event?
It's actually 3, but the main event is Friday. So we have a concurrent events Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I can get you access to all of them, but the trade show and the workshops, the main focus is the Friday the 11th.
Ain't it cool when a brother just stand up and be just hard with you? See,
Yeah, man, you got a typo on your stuff, bro.
I need to check you with a couple of things.
About
You
that
said the
networking.
10th and the 11th. Let's be clear.
Hey, I like how you said that because you want to make sure I'm a doctor too.
Right.
Before I start this conversation off real quick, I am a doctor, so I am looking thoroughly through all this paperwork. That's fun. I like that. That's hilarious.
Wow, what can I say? A big, big hand for this panel. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yes. Thank you.